Digital Pilipinas, bringing together the world's industry leaders in a multi-month movement of innovation and nation building to solve the country's age-old problems with technology. Technology can be our nation's strength and advantage as we showcase Filipino tech expertise to make a lasting impact on the country, influence change, and foster inclusion through technology and innovation across local and global spheres. To do this, Digital Pilipinas champions a 12-point agenda that provides solutions while leveraging on ICT-driven opportunities. FinTech, GovTech, and RegTech. PropTech. Digital transformation. Overseas Filipino banking. Future of mobility. InsurTech. E-commerce. Cybersecurity. Internet of Energy. Future of education, digital cities, gaming. The 12-point agenda will be our guiding star as we trade with trust, encourage cross-border collaborations, e-commerce, open finance, and work hand-in-hand with national and global tech leaders. Digital Pilipinas is a legacy in the making. In 2019, Amor Maclang, FinTech Philippines Executive Director, and Geyser Maclang Marketing Communications Incorporated co-founder, led the Philippine delegation in the Singapore FinTech Festival. In 2020, the country joined the ranks of emerging leaders in the largest event for global tech innovators, the World FinTech Festival. Now, Ms. Maclang, the appointed convener of the World FinTech Festival Philippines, is taking it a step further by gathering the brightest minds to establish the roadmap of the country's technological future with Digital Pilipinas. In the coming months, we will create the Digital Pilipinas Blueprint. It is a whole-of-nation, whole-of-society, whole-of-business approach with national leaders, foreign partners, and the private sector. Filipinos are at the heart of the ASEAN digital revolution, with Asia as the sandbox of innovations. With Digital Pilipinas, our nation will collectively break barriers, tech up industries, and go beyond what seemed to be impossible before. Watch out for our different events and programs in the following months featuring Business Without Borders, Real Estate and PropTech, EduTech, InsurTech and HealthTech, Environment and Sustainability, Diversity and Inclusion, Esports and Gaming, Cyber Defense and Cybersecurity. Get ready to join our biggest initiatives during the Global Impact FinTech ASEAN Conference, the Risky Business Series, the World FinTech Festival Reduxes, the Singapore FinTech Festival, the Next Generation Leaders Conference, culminating in the launch of the World FinTech Festival Philippines in November. Join the movement and be part of the country's digital revolution. Contact us by email and through our Facebook pages to learn more and be part of the Whole of Nation, Whole of Society platform for global and local prosperity. Digital Pilipinas is supported by the following partners and prime movers in innovation and nation building from the government and private sectors. Join the movement today. Mabuhay tayong lahat. Mabuhay ang Digital Pilipinas.
That was an incredible session. We're just beginning, but already there's so many insights shared by our panelists. We're going straight into our second panel, Protect Pinas, Technology and its role in a more cyber-secure and cyber-defended digital Philippines, where we'll hear from the white hat hackers, cybersecurity experts, and top representatives from the digital wallet companies, auditing firms, and data mining companies. Allow me to turn over to you, our moderator for this panel, Mr. Noel Bonoan, Vice Chairman and Chief Operating Officer at KPMG, RG Manabat and Company.
Hello, my name is Noel Bonoan, and I'll be your lead for this panel. Welcome everyone to the Protect Pinas panel, where we will tackle cyber technology and a more secure environment. in the Philippines. It is no secret that our country, as with so many other countries, is susceptible to cyber threats and attacks. But we Filipinos never back down, and this is our chance to team up and strengthen our cyber defense. Joining our league in the cyber fight today are some of the best and brightest minds in cybersecurity, white hat hacking, data mining, auditing, and digital payments. I'm sure this is going to be a really thrilling discussion. So let's get on with it, and let me welcome onto the screen our reactors. First is David Hayes, Vice President for Asia Pacific at LexisNexis Risk Solutions. David, some words from you.
Well, firstly, thank you very much, Noel. Thank you for the incredibly warm introduction there, and it's an absolute delight to be part of this panel today. I guess as a quick introduction to me, I started my career over in the UK, in Europe, in the very late 90s, and it's been a wonderful journey. The last 20 plus years, I've been very much part of the digital transformation journey, the fintech world, and seeing opportunities evolve for numerous companies across the region. I moved to Hong Kong, where I now lead the fraud, financial crime, and cybersecurity team for LexisNexis Risk Solutions. In this region, we work with thousands of customers, many of them banks, but also e-commerce companies and a broad range of other financial institutions. We help them with everything from eKYC through to digital identity, sanction screening, enhanced due diligence. So again, very happy to be here and looking forward to the discussion over the next hour.
Thank you, David. Our next panelist is Mr. Jalain Manrique, who is a partner and head of technology consulting at KPMG Philippines. Jalain, maybe just a few words.
Thanks, Noel. So just like what David said, I'm happy to be part of this esteemed panelists today. And in KPMG, we do have a mature practice when it comes to cybersecurity, and I'm really excited to be sharing our insights to everyone watching this event.
Thank you, Jalain. Next on the panel is Mr. Dax Labrador, founder of RootCon. Dax, what is RootCon and what's the advocacy?
Hi, Noel. Thanks for that very warm welcome. It's great to be, joining the brightest mind in cybersecurity and fintech industry. So let me introduce myself first. I'm Dax, also known as Simprix in the interwebs. I'm the founder and creator, also the chaos organizer of RootCon. RootCon is the largest and longest running hacking conference in the Philippines. So my other hat, I'm also the director of professional services, managing several, penetration testing team here in APAC in one of the Fortune 500 companies. So I've been in the industry, hacking and breaking things for almost 15 years now. Looking forward to a very fruitful panel discussion today.
Thank you, Dax. Also joining us is Yanis Hannan, the CEO of Secuna Software Technologies. Yanis?
Thank you, Noel. Thank you for having me. It's a real privilege to be part of this panel and to meet really nice people. Secuna, in a couple of words, is a Philippines-based company. We're a community-powered cybersecurity platform, and we connect vetted security researchers with customers. So when you want to get your systems tested, you can use the Secuna platform and have a group of vetted security professionals test the application and find issues and deficiencies with your product. So my background is primarily software. I've been in the Philippines for about 15 years, and I'm very excited about the upcoming discussion. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Hannes. And from the government side, we have Undersecretary Ali Atienza from the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or the Philippines government's DICT. Undersecretary Atienza.
Hi, Noel. Hi, everyone. And first of all, thank you for inviting me here as a panelist. Let me talk about myself. I started off actually developing systems back in 1990s. And I started with actually developing systems for banks. Ended up in politics, went back again as Undersecretary of Emerging Technologies and also handling ease of doing business. We're actually developing, designing systems so that payment gateways will be able to actually be used for government. As of now, a lot actually have been, for the private sector, it's okay. It's done, there are a lot of other companies, but it is a challenge to actually have a payment gateway, especially for government taxes.
Thank you very much for joining us, Undersecretary Atienza. And next up is Mark Fragoso, who's the Chief Information Security Officer at Mint, the company behind GCash. Mark?
Thank you, Noel, and it's a pleasure to be part of this panel. As what you mentioned, I'm the Chief Information Security Officer of the largest fintech company in the Philippines, Mint and GCash. I'm also happy to share that with the recent infused investment on our company, Mint has now reached double unicorn status, and I think this is the first ever in the Philippines. This only demonstrates the trust and belief to our company, not just on the products and services, but also with its purpose and vision. So yeah, thank you.
That's big news, Mark. Thank you for that. And last but not least, my good friend Bert Manabat, who is the lead independent director of the Union Bank of the Philippines. Bert,
Yeah.
some words from you.
Thank you very much, Noel. Glad to be part of this distinguished panel of reactors and IT experts. I used to be, as Noel hinted, being a good friend. He used to be the chairman and CEO of KPMG, RG Manabat and Company. That's the KPMG in the Philippines. And am now with Union Bank as lead independent director, and with other banks like City Savings Bank and Union Digital, and also a board advisor in SM Investment Corporation and SM Prime. Glad to be part of this panel and looking forward to fruitful discussion.
It's good to see you, Bert, again. So, gentlemen, welcome. We've got a very varied panel, as you can see, and a very exciting discussion ahead. So let's get things rolling. Let me start with this question. Maybe I'll direct this to David. David Hayes, what are the top cybersecurity risks that are related to fintechs and to businesses in general?
Well, thank you, and that's a great question to get us started today, and quite a broad topic. I think what I will do is I will maybe share some of the findings from our most recent cybercrime report. This is a report that we publish twice a year based on the transactions that we monitor across the network. To put that into context, we're currently working with a little under 5,000 companies globally, and the solutions are deployed on around 35,000 websites and mobile apps. So in terms of transactions, for the first half of 2021, we saw an increase of 28%, and that's a significant increase compared to what we've seen in previous years. The growth in financial services transactions has gone up 30%, in e-commerce transactions 21%, and media and social networking transactions up 27%. And now let me share with you the number of attacks that we're seeing in terms of cybersecurity attacks. Well, the good news is we've seen a decline in human-initiated attacks, and these are individual hackers making an effort to conduct social engineering and phishing attempts and so on. So generally across the board, we've seen a decrease in human-initiated attacks. What's really worrying, and it's a trend that we've seen over the last couple of years, is a significant increase in bot attacks. So in the first 6 months of 2021, an increase of 41% in terms of automated bot attacks, 28% in financial services. We did see a small decline in terms of e-commerce, but a huge increase in media and social networking bot attacks. So The increase there was 174%. The reason that's worrying is because fraudsters and the bots are designed to target easier to access accounts first of all. So the bots will be engineered to target email accounts, social media accounts, media streaming accounts. If the credentials work and they are successful, the bots will then begin to target financial services and start to attack the loan accounts and the banking accounts. So some worrying figures there, and something that we're obviously here to discuss today. In terms of the sort of devices, we are seeing a decrease in attacks on browsers and desktops, but obviously conversely, we are seeing that increase in mobile attacks. So we've seen a 68%, sorry, of the attacks are targeting mobile devices. So I'm sure if you log into WhatsApp or Viber or any other applications on your mobile, you will see phishing attempts there, automated attacks, malware, again, really targeting mobile devices. So again, some recent findings from our cybercrime report there. Hopefully that's useful.
So David, you're saying that, I guess you're saying that with bots now in the picture, does this significantly increase the risk of cyber attacks in terms of the frequency, in terms of the sophistication, in terms of the depth of these attacks?
Absolutely. I mean, globally, I think there are a little over 6.3 billion smartphones in circulation now, and obviously that number is increasing day by day. On average, the average user is downloading 2 to 3 apps per week as well. So we're seeing everybody appreciates technology. We all love mobile payment apps. We like to conduct business online. But every time we download a new app, we are exposing ourselves to a greater level of risk. So without a doubt, as we're all online so much more, the risks are going to increase. I think as banks, as technology vendors, we do have a responsibility really to our end customers to protect them from these attacks.
Okay. That's very insightful, David. Thank you. Let me get the view of our resident hacker, Dax Labrador. Where do you see the sophistication of hacking, cybersecurity breaches going? Are hackers getting more sophisticated? And how fast are defenses keeping up with all these developments?
Yeah, thanks, Noel. So I think for technology right now is really fast evolving, and you're correct on that part. That hackers are also, coping up, getting more sophisticated on their attacks. So just like, for example, just this year, professional, networking giant LinkedIn saw data associated with 700 million of its user posted in the dark web. So that's back in June, impacting more than 90% of its user base. So the hacker was just using a data scraping techniques by exploiting the sites and other sites that's connected with LinkedIn API before dumping the first information, data set of around 500 million customers. So as we, as the defenders protect their assets, hackers are also, trying to upgrade their skills. So as technology gets more advanced, cyber criminals and getting more skilled and finding those, and exploiting those vulnerabilities.
And Dax, if there's anything that you've seen in terms of trends in hacking or any new techniques that that experts should be watching out for, essentially the future of hacking, what should cybersecurity defense experts start preparing themselves for?
Yeah, I think I have to agree with David discussion there. Botnets are really getting more sophisticated there, and most botnets are already, they are trying to design or they've been upgraded to use an AI kind of stuff So there's really none much of a user interaction or finding those vulnerabilities. It just pops there. So if your defenses are low and botnets are in the wild, there's a very big chance that you're gonna get hacked.
Okay, that's a sobering thought, Dax, and let's shift gears and get some reaction from the government. Undersecretary Ali, what are the challenges to, in terms of government's response to ensuring that our cyber environment is secure? What is government doing in terms of regulations, in terms of systems, and all their initiatives?
Actually, we can group this laws into 4 categories. Of course, there's personal information, movement of money, business practices, and cybersecurity. For personal information, there's Republic Act number 10173, or the Data Privacy Act, which provides safeguards and to protect personal information and sensitive personal information. Under the Data Privacy Act, fintech companies and other online business owners, either as personal information controller or personal information processor, are mandated to uphold the data privacy rights of their customers, and of course to properly handle personal information within their control and possession. For money movement, the primary law that addresses money laundering in the country is the Public Act number 9160, or also known as the Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2001. Electronic money issuers and other financial institutions which are subject to Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas supervision under special laws are considered covered institutions. As a preventive measure, covered institutions shall maintain a system of verifying the true identity of their clients. Moreover, covered institutions shall report to the Anti-Money Laundering Council, or AMLAC, all covered and suspicious transactions within 5 working days from occurrence thereof. For business practices, the main law which provides protection for Philippine consumers from deceptive and unfair business practices is Republic Act number 7394, otherwise known as the Consumer Act of the Philippines. Pursuant to Republic Act number 8792, or the Electronic Commerce Act of 2000, the applicability of the Consumer Act of the Philippines is extended to cover e-commerce transactions or online selling. The Consumer Act of the Philippines contains, among others, measures to protect the consumers against deceptive, unfair, and unconscionable sales acts and practices. Lastly, for cybersecurity, we have 4 laws that provide protection and support to consumers whose cybersecurity gets compromised. We have Republic Act number 8792, or the Electronic Commerce Act of 2000, Republic Act number 8484, or the Access Devices Regulation Act of 1998, as amended by Republic Act number 114492. And the next is Republic Act number 10175, or the Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012, and Republic Act number 10173, or Data Privacy Act of 2012. These laws give protection against cybersecurity breaches by defining what constitutes hacking and unauthorized access to or intentional breach of information and communication systems, and providing for the penalties.
That's really interesting, Undersecretary Tianza. Thank you very much. I'm particularly interested about the anti-hacking law. Is that something that the Department of Justice, the DICT, is working together to ensure that it's enforced strongly?
Well, definitely, actually, all the other departments are involved in actually crafting all these policies and laws. Of course, there's still a lot of policies and laws that we need to actually be able to provide for, just to make sure, because of the fast-paced technology, that even hacking is advancing sometimes faster than developing actually systems to control it. Again, it's good to be in this panel because I think the experts here would actually be able to help us also in making sure that policies and laws would quickly follow, or in fact, if we can go further or faster than what is happening right now.
Thank you very much, Undersecretary Tianza. Yanis, let me throw this question to you. What is the future of cybersecurity in the Philippines? maybe you can tell us what the present state is and what you foresee the future to be for cybersecurity, and where can Philippine cybersecurity experts improve on?
Well, as far as the current situation of cybersecurity, we are at a stage where companies are maturing, right? From the private sector, from the public sector. I think there has been, particularly with COVID, an increase in awareness, right? Because COVID has also been a strong vector for cyber attacks, right? I think the number of phishing emails has nearly doubled during COVID. As people have been using more online tools to communicate, this has actually exposed a number of organizations, right? So in my view, cybersecurity will improve with generally education of the public, right? So that means educating people as early as school, but also in businesses and in government practice, right? So without proper advocacy for cybersecurity and from general understanding of the public for what cybersecurity means and the impact it can have on their lives, then fewer progress will be made, right? So the good thing we see now is we see a lot more companies doing internal training, right? A lot more external consultants coming to companies to raise awareness and to start putting in place strong internal cybersecurity controls in the organizations, right? And I believe that's also one of the pillars of the DICT strategy to develop really awareness and community outreach to really educate the usual consumer on typical scams that they can experience in the day-to-day life, or more elaborate schemes that would typically target larger businesses and particularly banks and financial organizations.
And Yanis, where does corporate culture play a role in all of this? Is it very important? Is it not so important?
Well, it's important that employees are already made aware, and there are a number of day-to-day scenarios where employees truly have to be educated. So, for example, a common scenario will be business email compromise, right? So your boss sends you an email with instructions to change a payment for a particular transaction, right? And obviously, when your boss sends you an email, you tend to not really always, think whether this should be done or not. You have a bias for execution, right? Where, so that's the theory. In practice, an employee that would take a step back and look at that email would think, okay, is this really what I need to do? I'm going to text my boss, or maybe I'm going to call him and make sure that this is really what he or she wants, right? And so that's that's an example of a scenario that could happen. And if an employee is not aware of the consequence, a transaction could be made and maybe a payment is going to go to the wrong person, typically an attacker, right? So corporate culture is very important because employees have to be trained and need to understand that they hold a lot of power in their hand when they issue a payment or when they validate a transaction, and they have to make sure that those are coming from genuine sources.
Thank you, Yanis. So let me shift to the financial sector. Bert Manabat, you're with the bank, and the banks are a favorite target of cybersecurity hackers or cybersecurity attacks. And that makes sense because, as one bank robber in the past said, that's where the money is. Why is it? What are the banks doing now that are meant to protect their customers from cybersecurity attacks, and not just their customers, from the banks as well? Let's talk about Union Bank. What is Union Bank doing?
Well, to protect our customers, we have campaigns. We call it Cyber Sure and Security Starts With You. Those two types of campaigns. The bank conducts extensive education and awareness campaigns to our customers, especially those who are new to digital transactions. And as was mentioned earlier, the growth of digital transactions, especially during this pandemic, really, fivefold or threefold or fourfold. So they are the ones highly prone, especially the new digital migrants, prone to be targets of fraudulent schemes. So we utilize digital channels, mainstream media, emails, and SMS to inform our customers about cyber crimes and how to avoid the tactics of scammers and fraudsters.
That's I think very important that the public is really made aware of, Bert. Um,
Well,
Mark, you're the Chief Information Security Officer at Mint. What does a robust cybersecurity system look like? What are the bells and whistles? What are the moving parts?
yeah. But probably prior to answering the question, well, if I may just add into what Sir Bert mentioned earlier, right?
Sure.
In terms of like the local bank situation right now, I think kudos to BSP. I think that's one, because I think from a regulator perspective, I think these guys are really doing a great job in terms of really enforcement, in terms of really oversight, right? So and I'll probably get a different viewpoint on this, but in terms of like regulations on the financial institutions locally in the Philippines, I think we have one of the best regulations out there, comparable or at par to MAS of Singapore, HKMA of Hong Kong, or BNM of Malaysia, right? So and that's why I think from a financial institution perspective, I think we are in the level of maturity of cybersecurity maturity, it's really in the industry standard, right? So
I'm glad you should say that. You know,
Yeah.
I was actually a bit late for this meeting earlier because I had just gotten off a meeting with the CEO of one of the top banks of the Philippines. And in my work, I get to talk a lot with CEOs. And number one on the top of their list is always cybersecurity. I guess 7 years ago, 10 years ago, you wouldn't have that. You wouldn't have cybersecurity as part of that top of the list, but now it's top of mind. And you can't, one CEO told me that with their drive to be a world-class financial institution, you cannot ignore cyber security issues, and it has to be on top of your list. So wholeheartedly agree with you, and I'm glad that that's your assessment coming from a cybersecurity expert. That's your assessment about where the Philippine banks are. So let's go back to the original question.
Sure.
What does a robust cybersecurity system look like?
Well, it's going to be holistic, right? It's combination of people, process, and technology. And I think there's also a bit of a culture, as what you mentioned earlier, right? That's a factor here. So there's also a commitment, not really just support, commitment from the board going down. So it's a top-down approach, right? And what it looks like, I think, I'm not going to dwell into really the details because it's going to be really that messy. But I think you need to probably I want to just share what it is that we're doing now with our organization as part of our cybersecurity strategy on us to becoming like a mature organization from a cyber perspective. It really, number one, really, so it's a people process technology strategy. It's a multi-year strategy, and there's a heavy focus on tech because we are a fintech organization, and definitely our business rides on technology. So number one, really about visibility, right? I mean, I always say this in all of the talks that I do. Visibility is really that key, right? So you need to be visible with all of the things that you have from an asset perspective, from an business unit and operations perspective, from all of your suppliers. You need to know all of them, right? You need to also know your people within, right? Who are they, what they do, and of course, you need to also know what your applications, your technology infrastructure, and the services that are running on those systems. Right? So visibility is really that key. The other one is have a mature cybersecurity program and should be holistic, right? You need to have a way to manage your vulnerabilities from both technology perspective and from your products and services perspective. Should you have like a product or systems as part of your omni channels that are facing the internet or that are being offered to your customers, right? You need to manage all of the vulnerabilities there. And the vulnerability management encompasses different other subsets of domains like vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, and coordination up until that's closed. So it's a continuous validation process. The other one is really third party. As I mentioned earlier, you need to manage your third party. You need to perform oversight and governance across all of your third party, right? The other thing also from a capability standpoint is you need to have a security operations. And that's really key because security operations is more of like the operations arm of cyber, of the cyber and information security, wherein they get to be like the soldiers on the ground, if you will, if I get to, if that's if I get to say that, they respond to incidents, right? They have, they also do like cyber, and within the security operations, you have SOC, Security Operations Center, you have cyber threat intelligence, you have the guys that manages all of your security solutions and tools, right? So you have security operation. Now you also need to have a well-versed identity and access management, because it's not just about technology, but who has access to your technology, or who has access to the things that you have, or to the most important operations and assets that you have that can shut down them, either intentionally or unintentionally. And so you need to manage all of those accounts or user accounts or IDs that can actually do bad things, right, in your organization. You need to also have a governance component of your cyber program, meaning looking like the horizontal, looking the oversight across all of your security programs that measures, are we that effective? Are we implementing the right controls? Do we have the right architecture, enterprise security architecture, right? And there's, as part of that oversight, you need to also manage all of the issues, not just from your internal capabilities, but you need to manage issues from an audit perspective, be it internal audit or your external auditor. You need to manage regulatory assessments and issues that will be a result of all of those assessments. So it's really, it's a lot, but to make things short, it's really a holistic view of all, program, because the thing with defenders is you need to be 100% right all the time. The bad actors is they need to be right one time, right? And so you need to just cover all their bases. So
that's a good way of putting it. Thank you very much, Mark. So many moving parts there. But let's go to you, Jelaine. You've been in the business for quite some time. What are the consequences if if a business doesn't do what Mark is doing? What are the consequences in terms of reputation, in terms of financial, and in terms of operations?
Thanks, Noel. I think ultimately it's about losing customers' trust. I think that will significantly affect the whole operation of the business, reputation, business disruption, and different implications. So I think what Mark was saying is quite important, both on the technical and non-technical aspect, because it's really more of how to be able to protect the trust that the consumers have given to us.
Okay, well, that's a good insight, Jelaine, and certainly a very compelling message for why businesses should be conscious about cybersecurity. And let's just go to that. And let me throw this question out. And please feel free to answer. In your opinion, are Philippine businesses, and let's keep it first to the medium-sized businesses, are Philippine businesses conscious enough about cybersecurity? So that's a question I'd like to put to the panel. Anyone can answer that, no holds barred.
Well, can I just give my insight there? I think businesses here in the Philippines, especially the small and medium enterprise, are quite aware about the importance of cybersecurity. But I think there's some constraint in terms of the financials, the funding that they would need to be able to implement these security measures for their organization. So I think it's also a call to action to all of the investors, and even to the board and management of these fintech companies or small to medium enterprise, to also take a conscious effort and also set some funds on the cybersecurity program of your organization, because it's actually a foundation. It's quite essential for your business to run. So that's my opinion in terms of their awareness on importance of cybersecurity.
So Yanis, I'd like to follow that answer of Jelaine with a question to you. Are there enough solutions there, reliable solutions out there for small and medium businesses to take advantage of, and not have to spend gazillions just to make themselves cybersecure and comply as well with large companies' requirements when they do business with them?
Well, the same way there are affordable tools, sadly, to perform attacks, there are also affordable tools to help you prevent attacks, right? And I think a number of companies, particularly the smaller ones, do not have the time or the focus to, they're aware of the dangers, but they usually tend to prioritize other aspects, right? I think there are some global statistics that I believe it's in 45% of the cases, a small or medium business does not recover from a cyber attacks, right? And if you look at even in recent history, I think Travelex, who was a really large company, went into bankruptcy after a ransomware attack earlier this year, right? So as far as the tools are concerned, there are some open source solutions. There are some affordable solutions available, a number of tools depending on the nature of your business. What's really important, and that goes back to what Mark highlighted, is to really have a holistic approach, because every business is a little bit different, depending with whether you rely on third-party systems that will be on the cloud that you use as software as a service, or whether you have your own system hosted in your own infrastructure. The technicalities of the solution will be different, right?
And
Yeah, Noel. Yeah.
yes, Bert.
Yeah, just to answer the question on how small businesses are coping. No, as Jelena said, they know the importance of cybersecurity. They know the threats that it poses. What Union Bank has been doing is to set up platforms. In effect, create an ecosystem and a marketplace for SMEs. No, we call it BUX, no, and BUX, no, and also we have a global linker platform where SMEs can join. No, so in effect, guide them also not only in creating a marketplace, but also things like taxation. No. So there are a lot of things that can be done there, and cybersecurity, of course, would be part of that, though. So it's creating a lot of platforms for the benefit of SMEs. That way, they could, somehow be automated and be secure.
Oh, that's very interesting, Bert. And I hope other banks as well are starting to take the lead, are starting to take Union Bank's lead in that initiative. David, I do have a question for you. So we've seen, a widespread acceptance of technology and its use, but we've seen as well, you earlier pointed out that hackers and attacks are getting more sophisticated.
Yeah.
But on the whole, are defense systems also getting just as sophisticated?
I mean, without a doubt, I think defense systems are getting more sophisticated. The word holistic has been mentioned a few times there, and that's 100% what the approach that we need to take. I mean, hackers or cyber criminals are always several steps ahead of business and of regular consumers and customers, and they are out there to take advantage of us and businesses. They don't follow the rules that have been set up by a regulator or law enforcement. They are deliberately trying to find ways around those rules. So unfortunately, I think it is a reality nowadays that any company and any consumer has to really sort of accept the fact that there's this risk out there. It's there hiding, and it will try and attack you when you're vulnerable. We all, businesses need to constantly evaluate the effectiveness of their fraud mitigation or cybersecurity mitigation efforts. And, they've got to continuously invest in new technology to stay one step ahead. Just one other point, and it was mentioned a couple of times earlier, it's got to be a combined effort as well. So as financial institutions, we have this responsibility to ensure that we're trying to minimize fraud and cyber attacks, but also it's about education and awareness. And this is quite a nice opportunity. As a bank, as a financial institution, you have an opportunity to help build trust with your customers through education and awareness. And I really liked, I think it was Ines' comment earlier, that should cybersecurity awareness begin in school. And I think that's a fantastic point. You know, as we all remember back, you know, when we're in school, we're taught how to do things like how to stay safe crossing the road. You know, for the children that are growing up today, they need to know how to stay safe in a virtual and technology environment. So it really, and that's obviously a government-led initiative, public service initiative, but also companies need to take responsibility for that education as well.
That's a great insight, David. I want to focus on DAX. I don't think this might be the first time I've actually met a real hacker. And,
All right.
you know, you're not wearing a hood, and I always thought that hackers wear hoods.
Yeah.
You know, hoodies. But tell us what you do. You know, for the uninitiated out there, tell us what you do as
Okay, so
as a white hat hacker and how you can be relevant to society as well.
yeah, so going back to the security, so the maturity of security here in the Philippines. So we've seen that since 2007. So RootCon started 2007, and we're now in our 15th iteration. So we've seen the growth of our attendees. So from there, we can really tell that the Philippines is maturing. They're trying to mature cybersecurity. They're basing hackers. As for small, medium, and even enterprise, even governments, we cannot divorce the fact that, you know, conducting VAPT or, you know, those sophisticated firewalls are really expensive. So for small, medium, or even the enterprise cannot afford it, or they have it. What they didn't see is the hacking community are giving them free penetration testing. So what we're calling, I'm speaking in behalf of the hacking community, what we're calling for Philippines to have is a full disclosure. So we're calling this one to the government, we're raising this one to the government, to have at least full disclosure policy. So what's a full disclosure policy? So whenever a hacker, you know, say for example, Union Bank or GCash, they saw a weakness there, they saw a vulnerability. Since we don't have a full disclosure policy, they will not let that one out. So they're just gonna keep it to themselves until other hackers, other more malicious hackers try to break in, so that vulnerability and game is over. So what I'm trying to say here is, you know, calling to Sir Ali here, I hope, you know, the government can, you know, set up a full disclosure policy where at least it's going to protect the hacking community. The hacking community has given the community free penetration testing, which is a bit more expensive. You just, you know, speaking from a hacker, once you acknowledge them, once you put them in the Hall of Fame page, that's enough for them. So hackers, we really don't, you know, up to the money or the monetary funds that you're gonna pay us or whatever. So just acknowledge the hacker, and we should be good to go.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that it's a passion, but let me put it to you. Shouldn't the hackers, white hat hackers who point out vulnerabilities to a big company, shouldn't they get paid as well? Considering the fact that, you know, they're helping the company protect themselves.
It's up to them. It's up to the company to pay the hackers. If they found a vulnerability, they report it. What hits the hacker is the ego. Once the corporate, you know, I think this is clear to everyone. I think what happened to Comelec. So I think was what I've known from the hacking community. The hack was reported. However, no one, you know, reacted from it. No one acknowledges the hacker, and I think the hacker just want to, you know, tell the Philippines or tell the community that, hey, our data is at risk. So, yeah.
Well, I'd like to be a fly on the wall in the hacking community, or at least in your Viber groups or your chat rooms. Jelaine, let me shift to you. I know that in KPMG we're taking cybersecurity very seriously. Our digital business is very strong, and what you do a lot of cyber maturity assessments. What exactly is a cyber maturity assessment?
Yes, thanks, Noel. So a cyber maturity assessment is pretty much similar to what Mark was saying earlier. So in conducting this, it's really more of assessing the cybersecurity posture wherein it tackles on different areas because technology or the technical assessment is really just a component of it, right? So we were discussing about the technical defense, right, of an organization, but actually there are a lot of areas that you have to think about when you are assessing the cybersecurity posture of an organization. There's leadership and governance, there's risk assessment process, business continuity, and operations technology. So there are a lot of areas. And in a cyber maturity assessment, it's really, again, to what Mark was saying, it's a holistic assessment of an organization in all of these domains. It's actually NIST based as well. So I'm sure our fellow experts here in the panel are quite aware that NIST is really a globally known framework and standard when it comes to cybersecurity. And doing this assessment, you get to understand where you are in terms of your posture. And also in KPMG, at least, we do benchmarking as well, try to understand how do you fare against your peers within the same industry. And from there, I think getting an understanding of where you are, you'll get to know what are the things you need to do. And from there, you'll be able to create a roadmap. So that's essentially how we're helping a lot of the organizations in doing cybersecurity assessment. If you don't mind, Noel, I do have a question to Dax, just to his point. It's just really quite interesting,
Sure, go
actually.
ahead, go ahead.
And
Yes.
and again, Dax, we were in that RootCon launch. I'm quite a fan of your group and RootCon. I just have a
Thank
question
you. Thank you.
regarding your point. If we allow that, right? So how can we then distinguish white hat from black hat to gray hat, right? So because there's trust issue there. While the idea is good, and I fully support it, but there's that component of how do we determine that you're really a full-fledged white hat and not really someone pretending to be a white hat but not really a white hat, if you get what I mean.
Yeah,
That's a good
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Are there any ethical standards for the hacking community that have to be codified?
Yeah, actually, to be honest to everyone, so before you're really gonna jump into the a more professional side, so there's a white hat, black hat, and gray hat. So to be honest to everyone, before you jump into being a white hat or being a professional hacker, there's once in our lifetime that we're really in between. So hackers are really, they have wild imaginations. And being a professional, an infosec professional, it limits your imagination. So being a gray hat or being a black hat, for that matter, it it gives out your imagination. So when you are a white hat or professional hacker, you are bound to contracts. You're bound to just doing this and that. So there's no creativity. So being a hacker is it's really more of a creativeness.
Wow,
So
that's
how do you separate it? We really can tell. We really can tell. I myself, I can just, I just can go, I'm gray hat for now. So tomorrow I'm gonna be white hat. So there, you really cannot differentiate between those three.
okay. That's a very interesting world that you're describing. Lenny, I know I'm very conscious about time. I know all of you are very busy and it's a very exciting discussion, but let me just throw this last question to Undersecretary Atienza. How can the private sector work more closely with the government to advance cybersecurity laws here, cybersecurity infrastructure? What do we have to do exactly? The nuts and bolts of it.
Actually, recently we've opened the department actually to the private sector because I always believe that no single person knows every single technology. And actually, I was raising my hand earlier because Dax mentioned the government. I was going to ask him, please collaborate and cooperate with us, and we'll do the necessary policies and programs that can actually help not just the government, but including the private sector.
And Dax gets protected, okay? So,
Thank you.
And I'll make sure there's a policeman following you every time.
yeah,
Hey, yes, sir.
he doesn't come to your office and just gets handcuffed. Okay, so great. That's a great attitude, Undersecretary Yenza. That's a great message for the private sector. We've got to close in a while, but let me just go around the table to ask you for your final words. Very short words to close, encapsulate what your message is. Bert, let me start with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, technology. Yes, technology brings advances in life and in business, but along with it comes risk. No? Top of which would be cybersecurity.
Yeah.
No? And it's top of mind for organizations, companies. No? That's why, for example, in Union Bank, we have a board committee precisely on cybersecurity because we know it's a top risk. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Bert. Mark, would you want to say anything?
Yep, sure. So I'm really a huge advocate of really starting with the right basics when it comes to cybersecurity, right? Even you can achieve security basically, even when not employing security tools, like even a software or solution per se. Like for example, if you have the right architecture design, right, that in turn enables security. But now, really, I'm gonna advocate from an organization's perspective. Start with your why. I mean, what is really your purpose and your vision as part of your organization, right? Because for me, I think if you're really if you're really part of an organization that really understand their core, the business core and objectives that they do, I think you will have or embed security as part of your day-to-day operations, as part of your programs, as part of your products and services. And so, yeah, I think there's always, I think the point is that I want to convey is there's definitely an enablement from the regulatory perspective, from a regulatory body perspective, but there is also a perspective of as a business, right? You need to understand, and if you're really aligned with with the value and your vision or your purpose in doing business, I think protecting your consumer, protecting your end users, and cybersecurity is one key pillar of that, definitely. So, yep.
Very good insights, Mark. Thank you for that. Yanis?
Yeah, well, thank you for the great discussion. I think I want to go back to some of the points that have been made about educating the employees and the consequence, particularly for small or medium business. I think we can see the market is really maturing, and we can see companies are really starting to get serious about cybersecurity in general. So I'm quite hopeful that in the next few years the maturity will continue rising. Right, and generally, companies will deploy more means to protect themselves, and they will think about the consequences. Right, I think the industry sadly has shown us how many companies have suffered tremendous loss from cybersecurity attack, and over time, starting from the top, executives and companies are going to get their priorities set right. So I'm quite hopeful that we are going to see a lot of maturity in the next few years.
That's an optimistic forecast, Yanis. Let's hope that that certainly will be the case. Jelaine, any last words?
Yeah, Noel. So in the principle of the theme of this event, which is Protect Filipinas, I think my message is that in the market right now, there's really a huge skills gap when it comes to cybersecurity, especially for the government. To Undersecretary Atienza, I'm pretty sure it will be hard for you to compete with private enterprise, right? Hiring the top talents because government may not be able to afford and compete with private companies, right? So I think the key here for the future is having that effective collaboration between the government and also to the community, to the hacking community of Mr. Dax. So I think that's really where the key is. And if the government can facilitate that collaboration, definitely it will contribute in terms of coming up with a more robust plan for the whole nation. So that's really what I wanted to relay and a call to action to everyone in this call.
That's a good point. And of course, collaborations with firms like us, don't forget, Jelaine.
Of course.
And Undersecretary Atienza, government was mentioned here. Would you want to have a final reaction?
Like technology advances really fast. Emerging technologies now will be a thing of the past, maybe in the next few years. So it's really vital for both the private sector and the government to actually collaborate and cooperate with each other. And again, I take your challenge, Mr. Jelaine and Mr. Dax. Call me. Let's collaborate. Let's make sure that actually the country is safe from cybercrime as much as we can. And again, I'm offering my office.
Okay, great.
You can see me anytime.
If for anything else, we've started something great in this particular session, particularly between collaboration between the private and the public sectors. Dax, on to you.
For me, there's only one word. So if a hackers or the hacking community is knocking on your door, try to accommodate them. So as what Sir Mark has discussed and Sikuna, you need to integrate the full disclosure bug bounty to your security policy. So don't just try to think of expensive VAPT or expensive firewalls or whatever. The hacking community is there to support you. So give them a chance. If they came knocking to your door, welcome them. That's it for me.
Well, thanks for coming out in the open about this, Dax. And last but not least, David Haynes.
Yeah, hey, thanks very much, Noel. Well, look, firstly, thank you again for the invitation to join today. It's been a really, really insightful discussion and really pleased to be part of it. From my perspective, I think we've seen tremendous technology developments over the last 5 years. We're at the beginning, though. We're going to see lots more, and with that comes opportunity for hackers and for fraudsters and financial criminals. We've got to stay one step ahead. We do see a trend whereby hackers and cyber attackers are working as networks. I think we need to do the same. Government, private enterprise, financial institutions, technology providers, consultants. Again, we need to collaborate. We need to have more workshops, more learning together, and help solve this problem together.
Thank you, David. It's been a privilege just having this very insightful and compelling conversation with all of you, to all our panelists. And it's got to end here. Thank you so much for sharing your deep and wide knowledge with all of us here today. I'm very positive after having this discussion that we are closer to a cyber-secure and cyber-defensive Philippines. So that's a wrap. Amor, back to you. Amor is the convener of Digital Pilipinas. Amor.
And it would not be possible, Noel, without the help of co-conveners as yourself. This is the second year that KPMG has championed cybersecurity for Digital Pilipinas. And to correct Noel, this is not the end, because what this is actually a beginning of collaboration. No? So if I may just very quickly recap what we need to do together, because in Digital Pilipinas, the talks are but a very small portion of what we need to do. A lot of the work, the rolling up of our sleeves, will be after this global event, which is Rogue FinTech Festival. A few things. Number one, challenge accepted, David. When it comes and with the support, hopefully, of our USEC for Nascent Technologies, USEC Ali, with the DICT, with the Banco Central, and even with the National Privacy Commission. We were just with Secretary Mon, Commissioner Mon Liboro. We will start
through education, upskilling, reskilling, start with our K to 12, right? So this week during the World FinTech Festival, we will be rolling out micro certification courses, and it will definitely include cybersecurity. And the nice thing about this is the accreditation is going to be portable and it will be in the blockchain. So David, challenge accepted. The second part, Yusek Ali, we will continue to darken your doorsteps because the idea of sandboxing and the test and learn approach, which we started in the financial services sector between the MAS and also with the BSP, we are now looking into replicating it across various national line agencies. No? So multiple national line agencies are adopting a test and learn approach, and Yusek Ali being the champion for teching up of the country, we will be calling on you. So thank you very much. So as you can see here, another intent, and the reason why I have here my mentor, Mr. Bert Manabat, is because we always have these early morning talks, right, Sir Bert? Essentially, technology has to be tempered with the right intent. And governance, regulation technology, something David and I always talk about. We need to sexify RegTech. And that's something that our whole of nation and whole of society approach to cybersecurity, Protect Pinas, is going to undertake. In Digital Pilipinas, we are a platform not just for those at front and center. We have two conveners who are unicorns. One is a duocorn and another is a unicorn out of Indonesia, Send It. But we also create a platform for those who have been historically on the fringe. So thank you, Mr. Dax Labrador, for coming out in the open. You know, Noel, it's interesting that you mentioned that this is the first time you met a white hat hacker, at least to your knowledge. When we first had the first forum with Mark Forgoso here and also with Jolene, most of the white hat hackers, their names were all concealed. And I'll tell you, this is the first time that the white hat hackers come out in the open. So Dax, this means so much. This will be the beginning of our collaboration, and we have the commitment of Yusek Ali to do so. Last but not the least, in the spirit of collaboration, cooperation, and even co-opetition, Sir Bert, thank you for agreeing to lead our risk management, cybersecurity, and cyber defense association. I've spoken to all of you in terms of birthing this group in the same manner that the FinTech Philippines Association has actually helped move the needle in terms of FinTech advocacy in the country. So on this note, maraming salamat po. Let us all work together towards a cyber-defended and a cyber-secure Philippines. Once again, maraming salamat KPMG, our co-convener and our champion for cybersecurity.
So thank you also to our audience for tuning in this morning. We hope you learned a lot of things today, just like I did. And so I'm sure that our panelists. Again, my name is Noel Bonon, and it was extremely a pleasure to lead this discussion for you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.